tell you what, I think I could go probably 6 or 7 more. It's so much fun to talk, not only football, but to talk with my brothers, you know, about it. This one's for Steve. Fred Behrens.
Funniest, nicest guy I ever met. Should be a politician. He can sell ice water to an Eskimo. He's been a great guy. Saved my life more than once, I'm sure, in the squad. We were partners in the police department and became quick friends. Trust him with my life, I guess, and like a brother.
Yeah, I tell you what, if I were starting a football program, if I knew now if I knew then what I knew now, my first phone call would have definitely been to Fred Behrens. There's no doubt in my mind about it. And I mean, I love Jimmy Blair, and Jimmy Blair was a great asset
coach
for us too.
Yep.
But there's Fred just has something special, not only with the kids, but with his thinking. And you know, he doesn't think like the rest of us.
Right, and the biggest attribute to Gary is when he was named head coach, Fred came to me and asked me if he thought Gary would let him volunteer to help coach football.
Yeah.
That's how much he respected Gary. But he's a great coach and great cop.
Yeah, when Steve called me about that, actually my mom called me about that, I really had to think probably a nanosecond before I said, yeah, get him over here. There's no doubt about it. Pretty much in closing, we got actually 2 more questions to go, but real quick, your opinion of what made Clark football special or different or both?
Wow. Well, it definitely was special. I think if it carried anything, it carried what we got at home as a family. We tried to make it, especially every Thursday night, we had a meal together. A lot of teams weren't allowed to do that, but we always had a prayer, not for victory, but for protection every Friday night. We knew that we could, you know, it was kind of enjoyable. We'd stay up Friday night after a game and go have family pizza with the coaches and stuff and our families. And then we'd stay up to get the newspaper in the morning to read the newspaper print to find out what they thought of us or how we looked. And then we'd start planning with the kids coming in. If they did well, they got donuts. If they didn't, they didn't. You know, they had to clean the field house. We made it a family. And I think that's, I was blessed to be the eldest son because I was blessed to be able to have my family around me. Gary was told as a kid, you can go anywhere Dale goes as long as you can keep up. And I attribute that to my dad because, first of all, he had enough love for me and respect for me to want his at that time, his youngest son to be able to go and know that I would care for him. I remember Stevie, he's 9 years younger, so that was a little harder, but I would umpire his Pee-wee games, and he was a catcher with the equipment. He was so long, you know, he could have wrapped it around him. But if I didn't make a good call, he'd let the ball go to hit me in the shins and call me Umpy Dumpy Lumpy brother. You know, but being a part of that, that's my only regret is I wasn't around Stevie more because of military and then going on and things. But our football program, whether it was in conditioning, it didn't matter. If it was another sport going on and we weren't coaching, you still felt a part of the entire Clark athletic program. Other coaches, I think of today, Dave Ralston, who was not probably our closest friend as we were coaching, but has come on to the point that he almost feels like he's one of our brothers. Yeah. You know, you said Fred as a brother. Yeah. That's important. They know that they could come and we would be honest with them and that we had a concern, not for a record, but for a friendship. Yeah,
Milan, I think I would throw Milan in there with that. You know, there's no doubt. Jim Griffith. You know, I mean, here was a guy who also went to Tech, which is there.
Dan Kazmersky, who did all of our scouting.
And did a great job with all the scouting.
It only cost us like 4 hot dogs every week.
Or him and Coach Carey with Skittles and missing entire series because they were fighting over the red Skittle.
I mean, there were a lot. Honestly, Gary, you put together, not saying that because of us, but all the other guys.
Yes.
What a great group of guys and how we all got along and it was wonderful.
Well, just like when Coach Friend left, Mark Hildago was placed in, and it wasn't that he didn't miss Coach Friend.
It's just that they were able to pick up on that same heartbeat that you had for the program. That's vital.
And actually, before that, if you remember, Kevin Tallman was supposed to be the defensive coordinator, and then his wife got a big job up in the northeast.
Yeah.
And so Doug Friend had to come in, and Doug Friend and Fred Behrens are both great defensive minds, totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, you know. Freddie is fly by the seat of my pants.
Right. Go after it.
Go after. And Doug was, everything was in black and white, and everything. Yes. We would have, I can still remember our meetings on Sunday, and we would do defense first so that Doug could work a little bit, and Doug would be working on his defense, and then we would be doing offense. And I would just purposely say something like, "So Doug, what do you think of that?" He goes, "Oh yeah, that sounds pretty good." And we hadn't even been talking about anything, you know. But it was definitely a family.
Yes.
It's guys that I would do anything for, and I think they would do anything for us. Sure. So it was really, really special.
Back to, you know, wanting to learn, you know, as a defensive coach, I'm sure Dale feels the same way. I was happy. None of the teams we played ran the veer. We ran the veer, and I was happy that we didn't have to defend against the veer. That's what I could say.
Yeah, there's no doubt that although I've been involved in a lot of offenses, you know, the veer to me is the toughest one, especially today. You know, maybe in 1970 when the veer was at its height, and everybody was trying to run the veer, and as Steve has alluded to a lot of times, teams that try to run the veer but don't read the veer, they're doing a misjustice to the veer.
Right. If it's a called veer, if you're calling the play, if the coach is telling them you're going to run the veer but you're going to keep the ball
or give it to
it the ball, you're not keying on that one important end on what he does. And if you're and we didn't have geniuses at quarterback. Right? I mean,
they weren't cool with some lobbies.
No, they can't. They didn't stop at the top of the class. But these Gary worked with them hard on how to read the veer and run it properly, and that's where our success offensively came.
Absolutely, and you know, and it's got everything that we preach. It's little guys. Our offensive linemen were not very big. And so they never had to take on a big guy.
Nope.
Not straight ahead anyway.
Right, it was all moving.
All angles and things, and that's what helped us so much against Morton in 1991. Like you said, their offensive line was 4th in the nation size-wise. They averaged 6'7" and 3/4 inches tall, 295 pounds was the average of their offensive linemen. And the defense naturally was made up of some of the same. So our little guys, you know, we couldn't have had you know, any of our guys going up against those guys one-on-one. We'd have got murdered. But by going at angles and things like that, it opened up little holes that our backs were able to get to. So, you know, I'm always going to be a veer guy, you know, no matter what. And I just think that it can be done. And hopefully, if any of you guys have any questions about that, don't ever hesitate to get a hold of me. Or go on our website. You know, we have a website, Huddle Up Coaches. www.huddleupcoaches.com, and then there's also a Facebook page that you can see some of this stuff.
Just using part of the veer in your offense, even if you don't buy into the whole thing. If you put a set of veer runs and passes in there, how much that defense is going to have to practice.
You got that. That's the key. That's what we always look for, because you know, in most of the teams that we played, they did not have one-sided teams. In other words, they didn't have a 2-platoon. So they didn't get 4 or 5 days of practice. They got 2 to 2.5. So in 2.5 days, trying to get the rules down as to who you're supposed to take the responsibility is phenomenally hard. And we banked on that. There's no
doubt. If you're assigning your linebacker instead of the end to go after the running back, the short pass is wide open because the lineback's got to leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're just opening something else up. And I mean, we're believers in it, maybe because we were successful and you taught me how good it was, and I love to watch the veer. But I know there's coaches out there that run wishbone and one-back sets and all that stuff, and that's fine. But even if you want to learn how to put a partial veer in, I think if you put a partial veer in this year, next year you're going to be wanting to put more of it in because you're going to see how successful it is. Really good.
Well, you got to be disciplined too. I mean, I remember us taking the quarterback and the halfback and going out in the field while you were practicing the rest of them and just working on reads, having one of the coaches come across as the end or where the linebacker was, and learning that non-look pitch type thing, knowing where, you know, your back keeping his proper spacing and so on.
we're not going to try to tell you that it doesn't take a lot of work in preparation, because it does. But once it's learned, I'm thinking of Kenny Atkins, who was not the greatest quarterback we ever had, but was one of the hardest working quarterbacks we had, that I was a part of anyway, and him working, and it made him a threat in many ways, even passing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the one that I did the most work with was Mike Ramirez, and how Mike would just think, oh no, I don't want to go out there again, and everybody else is over there hitting and doing, and he's over there flipping the ball. What are we doing this for?
Natural then.
Yeah, and but every game he played, he was a threat.
Yeah.
And big enough that they didn't want him to run the ball. So that opened up everything else.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, not to sound like an advertisement or something like that, but there are 5 drills that we used all the time for the backs and the quarterback to learn how to read the option. They are in a book that I wrote called a football offense for all sizes, and it's also on the website. So if you're at all interested, or if you're a defensive guy and you play against the Veer, you want to know what they're trying to accomplish. So it's always a good idea to take a look at what's going on.
Defensive person, even all my coaching, I have not much practical experience, but all my coaching, I believe in the Veer. I really wouldn't want to have to defend it.
I agree. As a back, if our running backs could learn the importance of setting up a block, of looking and knowing. One of the things I think we did well was that the line communicated well with the backs and the quarterback. I can take this guy in, or I can take this guy out, or I got him going backward. It would help us to avail ourselves to a coach. And you weren't afraid to ask your players, what can't you do? What can? And if you can't do something, I'd rather know it than us keep calling the same play and get stopped 2 yards behind the line. You're willing to adapt. And I think if we had a word for Clark football too, it would be adaptability.
Yeah. In the book that I wrote and in on the website, I think there's 2 types of coaches. And I think you guys would agree to this. One is the guy that will take their players and adapt whatever they're doing to their players, to the talents of their players. Yes. And that's, I think, what we were able to do. Other ones are they take their idea and they force feed, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
in the right circumstances.
If you have enough talent to pull.
Yeah, you look at Hobart. I mean, Hobart did that for years.
Got
with
100
Coach
kids
Howell.
on the team.
Yeah, and even Lowell. Lowell is an I-back team. That's going to be an I-back team probably.
But even those teams, real quickly, even those teams, if you have one certain guy that does one certain thing well, and you use them only for those instances, how easy is that to pick up on?
Yeah,
tendencies.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing you couldn't say about us, we didn't have any tendencies because guys played all the time. Yeah. They never got off the field, basically.
Yeah.
You might get a blow once in a while, but
absolutely. This has been fantastic. Great way to spend a Memorial Day weekend. I hope when I get this done, it probably won't be before Memorial Day. But to all those servicemen out there, we want to thank you for everything that you have done. There's not enough money or thanks in the day for what you guys go through. For our players, you guys made us pretty happy guys most of the time. But I couldn't ask for anything better. There's no doubt about it. Really. And for my 2 brothers, I want to thank them for not only being here, but boy, coming to the charge when we needed it back in good old Hammond Clark.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I appreciate everything you've done, and we will talk to you in the future sometime. All right, bye.